as I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes then he will understand, but not before that. That's the tragic of the situation of demoralization.
In the second half of the 19th century, a new dynamic was beginning to express itself in the political landscape of the world. Previous to this, the world had been dominated by a system of empires, typified by the British Empire's commitment to thriving off the sheer brute labor power of uneducated, enslaved populations. In the name of free trade, the British East India Company enforced an economic policy devised to maintain the dependence of its colonies upon its control of maritime shipping throughout the world. By flooding foreign markets with cheap goods, they would force other countries to devalue their labor to the point where their only recourse was either the employment of slave labor or the elimination of manufacturing altogether. By these means, Britain's colonies were to forever remain vassals, with the sole purpose of supplying raw materials to the empire.
The British Empire ruled by controlling trade in raw materials. So they would have colonies around the world in which they would loot these colonies. But the colonies were never allowed to develop beyond the level at which they needed to develop to make the looting of their raw materials efficient. So you'd build railroads from the mine to the coast, but you'd never build railroads across the continent to tie the continent together as a whole. That you'd build up certain local aristocracies, but that's for the purposes of providing the political protection for your looting operations. But it's all about looting and extraction. You don't want these things to become nations, because if they become nations, they start to look at these resources as theirs instead of yours. And that's a problem if you're trying to steal them.
In the post-colonial United States Republic, however, there existed a better vision for the future. American system economist and advisor to President Abraham Lincoln, Henry C. Carey, drew a stark contrast when he wrote in 1851,
"Two systems are before the world. One looks to underworking the Hindu and sinking the rest of the world to his level. The other to raising the standard of man throughout the world to our level. One looks to pauperism, ignorance, depopulation, and barbarism. The other to increasing wealth, comfort, intelligence, and civilization. One looks towards universal war, the other towards universal peace. One is the English system, the other we may be proud to call the American system, for it is the only one ever devised, the tendency of which was that of elevating while equalizing the condition of man throughout the world. Such is the true mission of the people of these United States. To raise the value of labor throughout the world, we need only to raise the value of our own."
In 1865, the young nation, the United States of America, under the leadership of President Abraham Lincoln, triumphed over the concerted efforts of the British Empire to break her apart through support of the Confederacy and other means of subversion. The American system, based upon freeing and fostering the creative capacities of mankind, thrived upon a culture of scientific advancement and development of basic economic infrastructure. A vast railway grid, stretching from ocean to ocean, reinforced the internal sovereignty of the nation and secured independence from any external sea power. In this way, the United States became the first continental sovereign nation-state to establish itself on the map in the entire span of recorded history.
Now, a nation is an entirely different thing. A nation, if you look at our Constitution and Declaration of Independence, where it says clearly that the purpose of what we're doing is to protect the general welfare of the population, that we're all in this together, that everybody gets protected, that we want to build a nation according to a concept which promotes culture, which promotes the development of the individuals and the creative potential of the human mind, because that's your real asset.
The international consequences of America's achievement precipitated rapidly. Just as Carey had foreseen, the popularity of the American system spread throughout the globe as other nations perceived its successful thwarting of the British Empire. Nations such as Germany, Russia, and Japan underwent rapid development. Germany, in particular, began to develop a vast network of rail and canals. With such an immense system of infrastructure, it quickly became a leader in industry throughout not only Europe, but the entire world. The productive output of Germany's Ruhr region was second only to the powerhouse of America, the Pittsburgh region. With Germany's exports growing, so did its maritime power, and as it laid plans to fund the construction of a continuous rail grid from Berlin to Baghdad, it emerged as a significant threat to the long-standing British world dominance.
But if you promote the creative potential of the human mind, then you also destroy the world in which the empires operate. Because anybody who's got a brain and can see a better way is not going to tolerate these things. And that when the United States, as you saw after the Civil War, when we got the American system up and running and started exporting it to other countries around the world, we were transforming the world. And we were the greatest threat to this system on the planet. And they've been after us to take it down ever since.